Israel's new government says we are not going to cancel gay pride. It's been less than 3 weeks since Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formed the most right-wing and religious government in Israel history, but he has already faced mounting criticism from within Israel and the diaspora. In the last week, tens of thousands gathered to protest against the government's proposal to overhaul the judicial system, which critics say threaten Israel's democracy. President Isaac Herzog also voiced his concerns. He said, quote, "We are in the grasp of a profound disagreement that is tearing our nation apart. This conflict worries me deeply, and it worries many across Israel and the Jewish diaspora," end of quote. Against the backdrop of such changes, the LGBTQ plus community of Israel is also worried. According to National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, advisor Yishai Fleischer, quote, "No one wants to be homophobic or racist. We want to protect Jews in the land of Israel. Ben-Gvir doesn't want to cut out secular people or LGBTQ plus people. We seek to be a responsible government. Gay pride may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it is not our agenda to cancel it. We want to defend all Israelis, no matter who, but also to defend those Israelis that don't want to see secular coercion or to deprive those who believe in their traditional Torah tradition. And that's what's kept the Jewish people alive all these years," end of quote. This is, populism. It's the populism, and it exists in Israel as well. I mean, probably Netanyahu doesn't voice that right now, but he like Bolsonaro, is very much a Trump look-alike, act-alike, and I would not be surprised if now that he takes again government, he goes again for that. He has, I don't know why they keep going back to Netanyahu. This is like the sixth term. Right, so they can form coalition, and then he keeps coming back, and then brings back all these very radical right-wingers to government in Israel. And again, our community and many other communities within Israel, like the minorities, the Ethiopians and all communities that have been already, they have voiced their, intention to go after them. So this is populism, and it's plain simple, and is at risk. So I think that this is the time with American Jews and, exercise their voice and power, and then just bring up our, concern about this.
I think that I will take Netanyahu or his lackeys at their word, because he doesn't trade Israel politics. And first off, the Knesset, their Congress, is very small. It's only like 130 some seats. And this is like their 5th election in like 3 or 4 years, because they just can't get a coalition to stick together. But the fear that politics in Israel trades on is a religious fear of your neighbor, because they are surrounded, of course, by Egypt and Syria and Lebanon. And so I really think that destroying the gays is at the bottom of their list, because they trade on the fear of their neighbors. And the fact is, their moderates, their purple seats swing very often left and right.
And remember, one of the reasons, the dog whistle that they're blowing is the extremist clerics in Israel are saying, we don't want a gay pride to be authorized. We don't want it in public. We want gay pride to be canceled, whether it be Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. We want it to be canceled, and that's what the president is really addressing, is whether or not that's going to happen.
Never mind that it brings in huge amounts of revenue. It's enormous.
And Netanyahu does have sort of a history of LGBT support. I can't even believe I'm saying that, but there is some that. But there is that idea that there's extremism is something that we're getting a little taste of here, that religious extremism.
little.
And it's something we should be aware of.
You know, a couple of points before we move on that I think are important. Israel does not mean the American Jewish community. They're two different communities. Let's not forget, and I know we would, I think likely we would agree with my observation, the American Jewish community has been among the most supportive politically and in voice communities, religious communities in America for the LGBTQ community since the Stonewall riots in 1969. So what we're watching in Israel is not the American Jewish community, because we have unparalleled support in that community. The other thing that I think is important is not to wag a finger or a tongue to President Herzog in Israel, but diversity and tolerance is something that Israel would want to remind itself over and over and over again, because Israel's place in the world has been an uphill slog and fight every step of the way. Precarious. And their reason, precarious, and the reason why the American Jewish community supports the LGBTQ community is they understand the plight we've gone through. The LGBTQ community understands the plight Israel has gone through. And now you have these very extremist right-wingers saying, but we don't need that anymore. Caution, very great caution to you, because you've lived on the diversity embracement. And the last thing that I want to make a connection on in Netanyahu's problem. I am no fan of Netanyahu, but he is also not Donald Trump. And Netanyahu is one who has tried to tamper this anti-LGBT thing going on in Israel. But the one thing that I at least give him credit for in terms of voice, Netanyahu is Speaker McCarthy, because they really are in the same plight. McCarthy could not get elected Speaker. It took 15 votes to get elected Speaker. And ultimately, we watched the debacle in our U.S. House of Representatives, which is exactly the debacle that went on for Netanyahu in Israel. You have to ultimately subside to the radical crazy. It exists in Israel. And to get the government formed, he had to accept them. Just like McCarthy brings in Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert and Matt Gaetz. You bring the
They're on committees now. They're on those super committees.
Exactly. And it was the only way the government could be formed in the House of Representatives. If for no other reason, I have some heartfelt sympathy for Netanyahu because we watched it in America. Now, make sure you do the right thing. Make sure.
Wow.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.